Welcome back to another episode of War in Cali. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a gang injunction against the Rolling 60 Crips. The Rolling 60 neighborhood Crips are known as one of the biggest and respected gangs located on the west side of South Central LA. The Rolling 60 Crips originated in the 1970s, with some of their first rivals being Bloods. Some of their main blood rivals became hoods like Inglewood Families, the Brims, and several more. But by 1979, one of their allies, the A-Tray Gangsta Crips, later became a top rival. This would cause many other gangs to pick sides or just become rivals on which side they was closer to. This would gain the 60s more rivals, and this will also make them gain many more allies, from gangs becoming a part of the neighborhood called like them, or just becoming allies to it. The Rolling 60s always had a reputation for causing havoc and putting in work in the streets, from going to events and causing problems to shooting at enemies. The 60s produced a lot of legendary figures from their turf, like Banker T, Big Rick, Pretty Boy, Little Fee, Big U, and Petey Wack, just to name a few. And with legendary figures like this, police always wanted to bring their Rolling 60s and its members over the years down. The Rolling 60s lost various hood legends, from catching bodies, selling dope, robberies, and of course death. In 2003, the police viewed the Rolling 60s as one of the top gangs in LA and one of the top gangs that they wanted to take down. The Los Angeles City Attorney filed a gang injunction against the Rolling 60 Crips, pointing out 31 men that were members and associates of the Rolling 60s, but some have suggested that the 60s were being unfairly targeted. The Rolling 60 Crips became the 17th gang in the injunction in the city, and the third against a black gang. The injunction requested a court order restricting the activities of the 31 alleged gang members. The city attorney called the Rolling 60s one of the deadliest gangs alive. City attorney wanted to stop those named in the document from carrying pagers or cell phones, wearing gang attire, gathering in public, and engaging in other activities deemed to help create a nuisance. The Rolling 60s named in the indictment were Little Archdog, Tiny Spank, Big Cat, Baby Wee, Seaball, Petey Wack, Papa Loke, Tiny Tadpole, CS, Tiny Mayhem, Little Scooby, Little Handsome, Little Rat Capone, Mad Ronnie, Hammerhand, Bodie, Rome, Face, Blue Shay, Hooster Rob, Scatterbrain, Tiny Turtle, and several others. So basically this indictment wanted everybody I mentioned and others to never approach people in cars, don't block areas or streets, no drugs, not even for personal use, no drinking outside, and at that time no pagers or no phones or electronics to alert other 60s. They couldn't even be around the 60s hood at all. This was just an old strategy from what they said would stop gang crime in LA, which they have been doing for decades. City attorneys have marshaled evidence on neighborhood nuisance cases to restrict the activities and movements of gang members. The injunction has been criticized on civil rights because they restrict activities such as gathering in public that are otherwise legal, and some law enforcement officials have questioned the court orders of effectiveness. But officials in LA City's attorney's office contend that the legal tactic is linked to lower crime rates and say courts have upheld. City attorney said the latest injunction will help stop the reign of terror that gang members have imposed on Hyde Park area and all of 60s turf. This was the first injunction in the LAPD 77th Street Division, even though the division territory is almost among the top 3 in homicides citywide. They seek to shut down the Rolling 60s by taking some of the top members down, which they did. But you know there's always going to be another generation to pick up where the others left off, and that injunction didn't end them. It is a 2008 article by Guy Lawson was published where he described the unknown Rolling 60 being an FBI informant, and he was one snitching on 60s for years. He will earn from $2,000 to $10,000 for just ratting out certain members of the 60s for various charges. The 60 informant set up another 60 named Capone, who did a bank robbery, and that's just one of the few people mentioned that he snitched on. It's snitches in every hood, but bro was a top snitch. Like bro was actually working for the FBI, not just the LAPD. In 2018, Chief U.S. District Judge Virginia A. Phillips ruled that most gang members subject to gang injunctions in Los Angeles suffered a due process violation since the city did not give them an opportunity to challenge the civil rights restraining orders in court. Los Angeles is barred from enforcing these restraining orders since 2017. The 60s still being an active gang to this day, and the order of unnecessary harassment is supposed to be done, but police seem like they never stopped that. Because how do you get arrested for just doing normal things like sitting at a park with a group of people, or get searched while just walking, when there hasn't been a crime or no call-ins reporting one? You can get harassed for just being a supposed gang member or just looking like one. Now that's what's really illegal. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my previous videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.